The red silk dress Cassandra wore had been chosen for Luca Moretti's victory gala, not for her public humiliation, yet she remained perfectly still as the cold. Tattooed Mafia boss presented heiress Bianca Salvi as his new executive secretary and implied that Cassandra's personal attachment had made her unreliable. Nobody in the ballroom knew Cassandra had spent 3 years sleeping beside a secure phone, quietly changing Luca's routes whenever an anonymous source warned of an attack. That source had sent one final message tonight. The woman in red will die at midnight. Cassandra had assumed it meant Bianca. Then she discovered a tracking device sewn inside her own dress and realized she had 27 minutes left. Luca refused to hear her warning, believing jealousy motivated her. Worse, Bianca produced photographs showing Cassandra meeting one of his enemies. Cassandra could explain the meeting, but doing so would expose the person she had sacrificed everything to protect. As midnight approached, every exit from the ballroom locked at once. At 11:33 p.m., the bronze bolts inside Moretti House drove into place with a sound too heavy to be mistaken for a power failure. Music stopped beneath the chandeliers. 300 guests turned toward doors that no longer moved. Cassandra Bell did not. She stood near the west archway in the red silk gown Luca had approved 2 weeks earlier, one hand pressed against the tiny hard rectangle sewn beneath its left side seam. At 30, she had a youthful round face, chestnut hair pinned in a loose high twist, and a naturally soft full figure the fitted silk followed without disguising. Tonight, the beauty Luca usually refused to notice had become a beacon. "Get away from the windows," she told the nearest guard. "Move the musicians behind the marble bar. No radios." The guard looked to Luca instead. Luca Moretti crossed the ballroom in a midnight blue suit, his open collar revealing black and gray tattoos across his neck and upper chest. At 27, he had already learned to make stillness more frightening than shouting. His angular face remained cold even now, but his jaw tightened when he saw Cassandra giving orders after he had dismissed her. "Unlock the doors," he told Security Chief Enzo Riva. Enzo tried the control tablet. "The house system rejected my credentials." Cassandra checked the ballroom clock. 25 minutes. The lockdown is internal. Someone used an administrator's certificate. Bianca Salvi emerged beside Luca in a white beaded gown, elegant and composed. The same certificate Cassandra managed. She lifted a folder containing photographs. In them, Cassandra sat across from Adrian Vale, a broker who supplied weapons and information to the Moretti's eastern rivals. The timestamp showed Tuesday afternoon. Cassandra had told Luca she was visiting her mother's clinic. The room changed around her. Men who had accepted her calendars, warnings, and quiet solutions for 3 years now saw treason arranged in glossy rectangles. "That meeting prevented an attack," Cassandra said. "By arranging one?" Bianca asked. Luca's gaze stayed on Cassandra. "Why did you lie about where you were?" "Because Vale had threatened her younger brother Daniel, an emergency room pharmacist, recovering from gambling debts Enzo had secretly purchased. Because the anonymous source had instructed her to meet Vale alone and exchange a false motorcade schedule for a sample from Luca's poisoned medication. Because admitting any of it before she secured proof would place Daniel within reach of the person already inside Luca's house. "I can explain after we get everyone out. You always need more time," Bianca said. Cassandra pulled a dessert fork from a table, tore the left seam of her gown, and exposed the tracker. Its blue diode pulsed once per second. Enzo drew his pistol. Guests recoiled. "It is transmitting my position," Cassandra said. "The warning," said the woman in red, "dies at midnight. Kill the ballroom lights and move everyone through the service corridor." "There is no service exit," Bianca said quickly. Cassandra looked at her. The corridor existed on old architectural plans, but not on public ones. Bianca had been in the house for 6 days. "There is," Cassandra replied. Behind the musician's alcove, at 11:39, a red point appeared on Cassandra's chest through the glass roof. Luca moved before anyone shouted. He struck her shoulder and drove both of them behind a stone column as a suppressed round shattered the champagne tower where she had stood. Glass rained over the floor. Luca's left palm opened on a shard, but his expression did not change. Cassandra ripped the tracker free and threw it beneath an empty serving cart. "Push that east." Slowly, the guard obeyed. A second bullet punched through the cart. Luca stared at the device, then at Bianca's photographs. Doubt did not equal trust. Enzo, detain Vela's men and Cassandra. If you detain me, someone drinks the toast, Cassandra said. The champagne shipment arrived through a vendor I cancelled this morning. My cancellation was reversed. At 6:12 p.m., Bianca's face remained serene. By Cassandra's count, the ballroom screens flickered on. Security footage showed Cassandra entering the wine room at 6:09 and leaving with a silver case. It was true, she had removed Luca's prescribed injection after learning its seal was false. The recording ended before it showed her deliver the case to Dr. Naomi Chen for testing. Luca saw only the theft. At 11:43, the sprinklers began spraying not water, but a bitter almond-scented mist. Cassandra grabbed Luca's bleeding hand, pulled him toward the hidden corridor, and made an irreversible choice. "Break the west wall," she ordered, "or everyone in this room dies before midnight." Luca did not ask how Cassandra knew which wall was hollow. For 6 minutes, competence mattered more than suspicion. He ordered 2 guards to drive a bronze banquet table into the musician's alcove. Plaster split, revealing a narrow service passage built during Prohibition. Cassandra directed guests through in rows of 10, placing older people first and tying wet linen over faces. She had the ventilation controls shut down before the almond mist could be pulled deeper into the house. The corridor opened into the kitchen courtyard at 11:51. Cold November rain struck silk, tuxedos and frightened faces. Cassandra counted every guest against the seating plan she had memorized. 2 were missing: Dr. Naomi Chen and Aldo Moretti, Luca's uncle and the family's legitimate business counsel. Bianca stayed close to Luca. Enzo kept his pistol trained on Cassandra. "The poison?" Luca asked. "Probably cyanogenic aerosol, diluted," Cassandra said. "Designed to panic, not kill everyone immediately." The sniper was the real strike. "You sound certain." I read the vendor's safety sheet after they appeared on a delivery list I had cancelled. For 3 years, Cassandra had been called a secretary by men who never understood what the job required. She controlled routes, medical appointments, vendor verification, encrypted calendars, guest clearances, and the gaps between armed departments that refused to speak to one another. Luca had depended on those gaps being closed without ever seeing her hands close them. Her habit was simple. Every alteration made under her credentials produced a paper confirmation from an offline label printer in her locked office. Luca teased her for distrusting digital systems. Tonight that habit mattered. "My office printer will show who reversed the cancellation," she said. Enzo spoke into a wired security phone. "Office wing is burning." Orange light rose beyond the courtyard roof. Bianca slipped off her white wrap and placed it around Cassandra's wet shoulders. The gesture looked generous. "She needs medical attention and restraint." Cassandra noticed a faint square of adhesive behind Bianca's right ear, the kind used to hold a discreet bone conduction receiver. Bianca saw her looking and brushed her hair down. At 11:54, Luca's private phone displayed a video call from Dr. Chen. The image showed the doctor bound to a chair in the old wine tunnel. Aldo stood behind her with blood at his temple. A distorted voice said, "At midnight, Moretti signs control of Bellwether Shipping to Salvi Holdings, or the doctor dies." Tamap returned. A contract waited on a table beside Luca's digital signing token, which should have been inside his upstairs safe. Bianca made a convincing sound of shock. "My father would never authorize this. Salvi Holdings belonged to her father, senatorial donor Vittorio Salvi. Bellwether controlled 3 East Coast terminals, and more importantly, the customs inspection leases attached to them. Transfer could move weapons, narcotics, or people beneath legitimate cargo for years." Cassandra examined the video. A brass ventilation wheel turned behind Dr. Chen. Condensation ran left to right along the pipe. She knew the tunnel map. "They are beneath the north greenhouse, not the wine cellar." Luca looked at her. "How the old cellar has electric vents. The greenhouse tunnel still uses manual wheels. The pipe slopes east." Enzo dispatched 4 men. Cassandra stopped him. "No radios. Whoever locked the house hears security traffic," Bianca said, "or she wants your men blind." Luca wrapped his cut hand with a napkin. "Cassandra comes with me." It was not trust. It was custody with utility. They entered the greenhouse passage at 11:57. Cassandra's heels slipped on wet stone, so she removed them and moved barefoot, keeping the torn red gown lifted clear of the floor. Luca walked ahead, pistol low in his uninjured hand. Enzo followed. Bianca was ordered to remain outside. At a junction, Cassandra heard 3 short knocks, a pause, then 2. Daniel had used that rhythm when they were children and needed help without alerting their violent father. The anonymous source was not a stranger. "Daniel is down here," she whispered. Luca turned. "Your brother?" A blast door slammed between them. Cassandra and Luca were trapped on one side. Enzo on the other. Gas hissed from a ceiling pipe, and the distorted voice returned through a speaker. "Sign the company away, Luca. Your faithful secretary has already delivered everything else." Cassandra tore the wet wrap from her shoulders and jammed it into the vent grill. Luca shot the speaker, but the hiss continued. "Not the pipe," she warned. "A ricochet in here could kill us." She felt along the floor until she found the drainage lip, then followed it toward a maintenance recess. Her knowledge was not miraculous. For 18 months she had scheduled inspections of these tunnels after a flood threatened the estate archives. Luca had signed every invoice without reading the reports. The recess held an emergency laver, sealed with brittle red wax. Cassandra broke it. A roof hatch opened, pulling the gas upward into the storm. Luca watched her breathe against the wall. "How many times have I survived because you read something I ignored? This isn't the time. That means more than 2. At 12:01, a mechanical timer clicked and the blast door released. Enzo was gone. A smear of blood led north, but no body appeared. Luca wanted to follow it. Cassandra heard the knocking again from a narrow storage chamber. They found Daniel Bell inside, wrists bound, a pharmacy access badge hanging from his neck. He was conscious but disoriented. An empty injector lay nearby. "Naloxone," Cassandra said after checking his pupils and breathing. "He was sedated with an opioid. We need Dr. Chen." Daniel caught her wrist. "They made me change the lots." Luca's expression hardened. Daniel had worked at St. Vincent's Pharmacy until gambling creditors appeared 6 months earlier. A lender offered to consolidate his debts. The lender was a shell company controlled by Enzo in return. Daniel was told to swap Luca's anti-inflammatory injections for identical vials containing a compound that caused intermittent arrhythmia and weakness. When Daniel tried to stop, they threatened Cassandra. "I sent the warnings," he admitted. "Not all of them. After I found the altered lots, someone began sending messages through the channel I created. They knew your routes before I did. The source had been compromised and then imitated." Cassandra's ordinary work had exposed the first anomaly 3 weeks earlier. Luca's medical appointments appeared twice in the encrypted calendar, once under Dr. Chen's clinic and once under a non-existent vendor code. She tested a synchronization error. Then she found pharmacy batch numbers assigned to patients who did not exist. She tried warning Dr. Chen in person. Enzo intercepted the appointment change, and Bianca arrived at the clinic first. The photographs with Adrian Vale recorded Cassandra's next move. Vale operated the freight brokerage that unknowingly carried the substituted vials. Cassandra traded him a false motorcade route to obtain the shipping manifest. She intended the route to lead the attackers into an empty armored decoy, monitored by federal port investigators. The action was real. The treason was false. "Why not tell me?" Luca asked. "Because Enzo controlled your security reports. Daniel was hostage to his debt, and someone was reading every message sent to you. I needed proof outside your system." Daniel pointed weakly toward the injector. "Naomi has the vial Cassandra stole. She tested it. Enzo took her before she could call." The evidence ladder had begun. The duplicate calendar entries proved the official medical record was incomplete. The manifest linked the altered lots to a Salvi warehouse. Dr. Chen's test could prove the substance and intent, but Dr. Chen and the sample were missing. A gunshot echoed from the north chamber. They reached it at 12:07 and found Aldo alive beside an empty chair. His temple wound was shallow. Dr. Chen had been moved. On the table lay the transfer contract and Luca's signing token. "Bianca's father wants the terminals," Aldo said. "Sign, and we get Naomi back." Cassandra examined the contract. Its notary certificate had been generated at 10:48 p.m., before the hostage video and before the alleged crisis required a transfer. The preparer's initials were ER. Enzo Riva had created it. Luca reached for his token. Cassandra seized it first and dropped it through the floor drain. A hidden camera captured the entire act. Cassandra taking Luca's property and destroying his ability to save a hostage. Then Bianca's voice came from the doorway. I told you she would choose betrayal when it mattered. Bianca stood behind two armed guards. Enzo appeared beside her without a wound, the blood trail revealed as stage dressing. He held Dr. Chen by the arm and pressed a pistol beneath her ribs. Give us the token, he said. It is in the storm drain, Cassandra replied. Halfway to the river. That was not quite true. The signing token had caught on a removable iron trap 6 inches below the grate. Cassandra had seen the trap during flood inspections. Her destruction was a protective act designed to buy time. Enzo played the tunnel recording for Luca, Cassandra taking the token. Then the splash. He added footage of her entering the wine room and photographs with Vale. A bank statement showed $200,000 transferred to Daniel from a Vale-controlled account. Every item contained truth stripped of context. You gave our route to Vale, Luca said. A false route. You removed my medication because it was poisoned. You destroyed the one thing that could free Naomi. Because signing gives them the ports. Each answer sounded like a clever excuse, because Cassandra could not produce the independent proof. Dr. Chen tried to speak, but Enzo tightened his grip. Daniel lay semi-conscious behind Luca. The simplest warning had failed because every vulnerable person was physically present, and every communication channel belonged to Enzo. Bianca stepped closer. Ask her why she never told you. Daniel took money. Cassandra looked at Luca. I was trying to protect him. By gambling with everyone else. His voice remained quiet. That hurt more than anger. You decided what I deserved to know. He was right about that part. Cassandra's competence had become control. She had kept saving Luca secretly because being indispensable felt safer than asking to be trusted. But his error was larger. He let humiliation, pride, and staged evidence turn a loyal person into a disposable suspect. At 12:12, Enzo offered terms. Cassandra would be surrendered to Vale as the apparent spy. Luca would sign a temporary proxy granting Aldo authority over Bellwether until the token was recovered. Dr. Chen and the guests would live. Aldo urged acceptance. The proxy appeared narrower than the full transfer. But Cassandra spotted language incorporating a separate schedule by reference. That schedule could contain anything. Don't sign, she said. Luca looked at Daniel, Naomi, and the armed men. Then he made the wrong decision for an understandable reason. Take her, he told Enzo. Cassandra did not beg. Enzo bound her wrists and led her through the greenhouse while Luca signed the proxy using Aldo's emergency notarial authority. Bianca watched with an expression of sympathetic triumph. Outside, rain had weakened to a cold drizzle. Cassandra was placed in a black SUV with 2 Vale mercenaries. Enzo assumed they would kill her at an abandoned freight yard and leave evidence blaming Vale. He did not know Cassandra had arranged a contingency before the gala. The tracking device sewn into her dress was paired with a second transmitter hidden inside its clasp. Removing the visible unit had activated a 12-hour distress beacon received by retired Federal Customs investigator Mara Ortiz. Dr. Chen's former wife on the expressway, Cassandra, used the broken wire from her wrist binding to short the SUV's rear climate control panel. Smoke filled the cabin when the driver pulled onto the shoulder. She drove her shoulder into one guard, kicked the door open, and rolled onto wet grass. Her left ankle twisted painfully, but she crawled into a drainage culvert before shots struck the guardrail. At 12:31, Mara found her beacon beneath the overpass. Back at Moretti House, Luca retrieved the signing token from the drain trap. Cassandra had not destroyed it. He turned it over and found a strip of red silk tied around its loop, a message in the private shorthand of his schedules. It meant, I bought you time, use it better than I did. By 1 a.m., the estate had been cleared and the aerosol identified as a non-lethal industrial irritant. Enzo had vanished. Bianca remained beside Luca, urging him to move the family council to Salvi Tower for safety. Aldo insisted the proxy gave him temporary control of Bellwether. Without Cassandra, small failures multiplied. 2 vehicles arrived for the same passenger. A guard admitted his background renewal had expired. The hospital rejected Luca's security code because Cassandra had rotated it after the first poisoned vial. Her absence revealed the architecture of his dependence. Luca sat in her burned office with his bandaged left palm and the recovered token. The offline printer had melted, but its fireproof paper tray remained closed. Inside, he found confirmation slips for every calendar alteration. Cassandra's cancellation of the champagne vendor printed at 8:14 a.m. The reversal at 6:12 p.m. bore Enzo's administrator certificate. That was the technical contradiction. The personal contradiction came next. Cassandra supposedly sold Luca's real route to Vale, yet the photographed envelope contained a route scheduled through a tunnel closed for repairs. She had personally logged the closure that morning. Cassandra never failed to reconcile a route against construction notices. If she meant to kill him, she had sold useless information. The adversarial contradiction arrived when Bianca entered and said, "You found the printer slips." Luca had told no one the tray survived. His expression did not move. "I found ashes." Bianca relaxed too quickly. Then there is nothing left to confuse the council. Luca tested her with controlled information. He claimed the signing token had been destroyed and that a backup would arrive at the Maritime Heritage benefit the following evening, where Bellwether's port lease renewal required a public vote. Within 9 minutes, a guard intercepted Enzo's burner phone message. "Backup token at benefit. Move final transfer to stage." Bianca knew where to send the lie. Luca detained her discreetly, but Aldo invoked the proxy and ordered Salvi security into the estate. Luca could not arrest a donoress daughter without exposing family crimes and risking the port lease. He needed evidence fit for both the council and legitimate authorities. Meanwhile, Mara drove Cassandra and Daniel to an unused customs training facility in Newark. Dr. Chen had escaped during the estate evacuation and joined them at 2:20 a.m. She treated Cassandra's ankle as a moderate sprain, wrapped it, and ordered limited weight-bearing. Cassandra changed into practical black trousers, a cream sweater, and borrowed boots, leaving the torn red gown sealed in an evidence bag. Dr. Chen had retained a cloud copy of the toxicology chromatogram, but Enzo had deleted its signature certificate. It proved a dangerous compound existed, not which vial produced it. Level 1 evidence. Mara recovered Vale's freight manifest from the meeting. Cassandra had concealed. It linked the substituted medical lot to a Salvi warehouse. But Vale could claim paperwork fraud. Level 2 connection. They still needed level 3. Proof. Bianca or Enzo knowingly ordered the substitutions and tied them to the Bellwether takeover. At 3:05 a.m., Luca used a one-time number printed inside the silk message Cassandra left. Mara answered. "Put Cassandra on no." Mara's voice was flat. "You surrendered her to her executioners." Luca accepted the sentence without defense. "Tell her I found all 3 contradictions." Cassandra heard from across the room. Her face revealed nothing, but her hands stopped over the manifest. Mara added, "Finding doubt after handing her over is not trust." "I know." Luca gave them the controlled message Bianca had sent and the printed slip bearing Enzo's certificate. Cassandra recognized the benefit as the deadline. At 8 p.m., Bellwether's lease renewal would be authenticated on stage. The proxy allowed Aldo to substitute Salvi Holdings as operator if Luca was declared medically incapacitated. The poison was designed not merely to kill him, but to produce a public collapse. Cassandra finally took the phone. "If you want the truth, come without Enzo, without Aldo, and without the expectation that I work for you. Where? Mara will send instructions. Cassandra, you get one chance to arrive as a partner, not my boss." Luca reached the customs facility at 4:10 a.m. after a 40-minute drive through wet streets. He came with one driver, who remained outside, and surrendered his weapons to Mara at the door. Cassandra sat at a metal table with her injured ankle elevated. The cream sweater softened none of her anger. Daniel slept in the infirmary. Dr. Chen organized evidence bags beneath fluorescent light. Luca placed the printer's slip and recovered signing token on the table. "I was wrong. That is a fact, not an apology. I believed evidence arranged by people I trusted. I punished you for keeping secrets while rewarding them for controlling mine. Better, still not enough. He did not ask forgiveness. That restraint earned the first fraction of respect. They reconstructed the plot. Vittorio Salvi needed Bellwether S terminals before a federal customs audit beginning Monday. The terminals contained records of sanctioned cargo diverted through his shell companies. Aldo wrote the proxy language. Enzo controlled security and Daniel's debt. Bianca accessed Luca socially and used her new appointment role to replace Cassandra's calendar authority. The staged gala attack created medical and political pressure for transfer. The villainess' fatal constraint was the Port Authority's dual authentication rule. A new operator could not be entered without Luca's biometric token and a live declaration by the proxy holder before the public lease board. They had to act at the benefit. We let them believe the backup token exists, Cassandra said. Then force Aldo to invoke the hidden schedule on stage. Mara objected. That proves greed, not poisoning. Dr. Chen displayed the chromatogram. The compound contains a proprietary stabilizer. Only 3 licensed distributors carry it. Vales Manifest named 1, Salvi Clinical Logistics. Cassandra remembered Bianca's adhesive receiver. Bone conduction units used encrypted short-range relays. The estate system archived device handshakes for insurance compliance. Enzo had burned Cassandra's office, but not the remote server at Bellwether Terminal 3. The handshake could place Bianca on Enzo's command channel during the attack, Cassandra said. Connection, Luca replied. Still not intent. So we give them a problem only the guilty can solve. They designed a controlled leak. The original poisoned vial supposedly survived inside Cassandra's red dress and would be delivered to federal agents at 7:30 p.m. in the Benefit's conservation room. In truth, the dress held only the tracker and fabric fibers. Hidden cameras would record whoever came to destroy it. A legitimate evidence officer would supervise custody. Luca contributed the missing pressure. He would publicly reject Cassandra again, claiming she had fabricated the poisoning that would convince Aldo the couple remained divided and preserve the benefit. Cassandra disliked becoming a prop in another humiliation. This time you do not decide for me, she said. You choose the words. She wrote them herself. Luca would state that Cassandra was not acting as his employee, that any claims she made were independent, and that he would submit to the Port Board's medical examination. The statement appeared to distance him while protecting her legal status and denying Aldo an automatic incapacity claim. At dawn, Luca watched Cassandra practice moving with a cane Mara found. Her ankle limited speed. The plan could not depend on running. He changed the conservation room route so it included an accessible service lift and 2 locked refuges. He did not praise her bravery. He adapted to her physical reality. Why did you keep saving me anonymously? He asked. Cassandra looked through the rain-streaked window, at first because it was my job, later because Daniel was trapped, and sometimes because I thought, if you knew how much you needed me, you would finally see me. Luca's eyes tightened, the only crack in his controlled face. I saw what you did. I refused to see what it cost. At 7:02 a.m., Mara's server alert sounded. Someone had accessed the customs facility's old floor plan. Using Enzo's credential, their refuge was compromised. They had 11 minutes before the nearest Salvi crew could arrive. Mara moved Daniel and Dr. Chen through a rear vehicle bay. Cassandra copied the evidence index onto 2 encrypted drives, handing one to Mara and sealing the other in a numbered federal evidence pouch witnessed by Dr. Chen. Luca carried nothing that could make him sole custodian. They left at 7:10 in separate vehicles. Cassandra rode with Mara to a federal field office, where Agent Elise Park accepted the torn red gown, tracker, chromatogram, manifest, printer slip, and signing token photographs. Park could not open a criminal case on inference alone, but she agreed to supervise the controlled evidence room at the public benefit. Luca returned to Moretti House by 8:05. He wore a charcoal suit and kept his injured left hand bandaged. Before Aldo and the council, he delivered Cassandra's chosen statement exactly. News outlets repeated the apparent rejection by noon. Bianca was released under Aldo's authority. She smiled at Luca as if reconciliation were possible. Her receiver was gone. At Terminal 3, a trusted systems engineer named Priya Nair retrieved the estate archived device handshakes. At 11:18 p.m. during the gala, Bianca's receiver connected to Enzo's relay. At 11:33, the same relay issued the lockdown command. At 11:39, it transmitted the tracker coordinates. Level 2 became strong, but Bianca could claim her device was cloned. Cassandra created the controlled leak from a clean phone at 1 p.m. She told Adrian Vale that the poisoned vial was sewn into the gown's hem and would be authenticated at 7:30. Vale, cooperating to avoid being blamed for murder, forwarded the claim through the channel Enzo monitored. They inserted one false detail. The vial's seal bore a green pharmacy mark. The real substituted seals were blue. Anyone repeating green would reveal access to the leak, not knowledge of the actual evidence. At 3:40, Aldo told the family council that federal agents possessed a green-sealed vial planted by Cassandra. Luca recorded the statement under the council's established security rules. Aldo had reacted to controlled information within 3 hours. The trap was tightening, but the conviction layer still required knowing participation. Cassandra proposed placing a blank transfer schedule in the conservation room beside the gown. Its cover would carry a machine-readable fiber invisible to the eye if Enzo stole it, and Aldo later introduced the same document on stage. Custody would connect the covert destruction attempt to the public takeover. Agent Park approved only after ensuring the document contained no forged legal content. Pryor added a microscopic fluorescent thread pattern and recorded its creation. Park sealed it at 5:12 p.m. At 6, guests began entering the Maritime Museum under Port Authority security, not Moretti guards. The benefit occupied a glass atrium overlooking the Hudson. Storm clouds remained, but rain had stopped. Cassandra arrived through the staff entrance in a deep burgundy velvet gown chosen to accommodate her ankle brace and cane. Its sweetheart neckline and soft drape suited the formal setting without restricting movement. Luca saw her across the atrium. He did not approach. Their apparent division had to remain credible. At 6:45, Bianca entered on Aldo's arm. Enzo was absent from the guest list. At 7:06, the conservation room camera failed. Agent Park checked the hard line. It had been cut inside a wall secured before noon. Someone with museum access had prepared the sabotage earlier than the leak. The villains had anticipated an evidence trap. Cassandra studied the floor plan and realized the room was never their target. The accessible service lift beside it connected directly to the museum's climate control vault. They were going to flood the conservation wing with inert gas. She told Park not to steal the dress, to make us evacuate and switch Luca's medical examiner during the confusion. Across the atrium, a server handed Luca a glass of water bearing the Port Clinic's seal. Cassandra struck the glass from Luca's hand with her cane. It shattered across the marble. At 7:11 p.m. the atrium fell silent. Cameras turned toward the curvy former secretary, apparently disrupting her old employer's public triumph. Luca looked at the water, then at her. He did not perform surprise. Explain. The clinic seal is backward. It was applied from a copied image. Bianca laughed softly. Or Cassandra needs one more spectacle. Port security detained the server, who carried no identification and claimed a temporary agency had hired him. Before Agent Park could question him, alarms announced oxygen loss in the conservation wing. Fire doors descended, separating Cassandra, Luca, Bianca, and Aldo from Parker's team. Enzo appeared through the service lift, wearing a museum technician's uniform. He held a compact pistol against Daniel's side. Daniel had been taken from the federal field office parking garage after a Salvi contractor rammed Mara's car. Mara survived with a fractured wrist. Daniel was captured. On stage in 40 minutes. Enzo said, Aldo invokes the schedule. Luca authenticates it. Cassandra admits she fabricated the poison evidence. Otherwise, her brother dies first. Then the doctor, Dr. Chen, appeared on Enzo's phone. Bound in a delivery van, the villain's contingency was intelligent. Pressure both leads through people whose safety could not be gambled. Cassandra's plan was damaged, not dead. Daniel tapped 3 short, 2 long against his belt buckle. Childhood code, then another sequence. Left, pause, lower. He was signaling an injector taped beneath Enzo's left sleeve. Likely the same arrhythmia compound intended for Luca. Luca agreed to go on stage. Cassandra appeared to recoil. You are giving them everything. I will not trade Daniel's life for a company. The statement was genuine and part of their deeper fallback. The Portboard S system recorded all stage microphones continuously for accessibility transcription, even before broadcasts began. If Enzo carried the compound and Aldo described the hidden schedule, their words could become evidence. Enzo forced them through a backstage corridor. Cassandra's ankle throbbed beneath the brace, but the cane concealed a short-range transmitter Pryor had installed. Each tap marked their location for Agent Park once communications returned. At 7:38, Aldo took the stage before donors, union officials, reporters, and the 5-member lease board. He announced Luca had suffered repeated cardiac episodes and would transfer operational control temporarily to Salvi Holdings. Bianca stood behind him in white, playing reluctant duty. Before Luca could be called forward, Chairwoman Ward demanded the mandatory continuity report Cassandra had quietly placed on the board agenda weeks earlier. Aldo had overlooked it because secretaries were expected to arrange meetings, not shape their rules. The report required disclosure of any cyber incident affecting biometric authentication during the preceding 48 hours. If Aldo admitted the gala lockdown, the board would suspend the transfer. If he concealed it, Priya's authenticated log would prove a material false statement. Aldo chose concealment. Bellwether has experienced no reportable authentication breach, he said into the permanent stage record. Cassandra watched the board clerk mark the declaration received. It did not end the conspiracy, but it closed an escape route. Aldo could no longer claim he had innocently relied on Enzo's paperwork after learning the system was compromised. Behind the curtain, Enzo shifted Daniel closer to the service door. Cassandra noticed the movement reflected in the black glass of a display case. She changed her cane rhythm. 1 tap, pause, 2 taps. Pryor understood the prearranged signal and redirected the building's camera buffer to an evidence server outside the museum. Even if Enzo reached the climate vault, the stage record and the next 10 minutes of video would survive elsewhere. Bianca noticed Cassandra studying the reflection and stepped between her and the case. "Still managing details no one asked you to manage?" she murmured. "That is why your plan needed my job." Cassandra replied, "You thought replacing me gave you my authority. It only gave you my chair." For the first time, Bianca's controlled smile tightened. She had inherited passwords Enzo supplied, invitations Aldo approved, and access purchased by her father. She had never learned the web of ordinary checks Cassandra performed every day. The conspiracy depended on confusing access with competence. Just as Luca once had. Luca stepped to the biometric podium. Enzo kept Daniel behind a curtain, pistol hidden against him. Cassandra entered last. Aldo ordered her to confess. She looked at the cameras. "I removed medication from Lucas' wine room. I met Adrian Vale and gave him a motorcade route. I took Lucas' signing token without permission." Gasps crossed the atrium. Every admission was true. And why? Aldo demanded. Because the medication was substituted, the route was a monitored decoy, and the token would have transferred Bellwether before the board could examine the hidden schedule. Aldo held up a packet. "There is no hidden schedule." Cassandra smiled for the first time that night. "Then you won." Mind turning to page 47, he did. The audience saw a page before he could stop himself. Aldo had just demonstrated knowledge of a schedule he denied existed, but Bianca adapted. She stepped forward and accused Luca and Cassandra of staging the entire crisis to discredit the Salvis and avoid the federal audit. She produced medical records signed by Dr. Chen, footage of Cassandra stealing the vial, and Daniela's bank payments to the public. Her rebuttal was devastating. Then Luca swayed at the podium. His biometric screen flashed an irregular pulse. He collapsed before Cassandra could reach him, and Aldo declared the proxy active. Cassandra knelt beside Luca at 7:44 p.m. His skin was cool, breathing controlled. He opened his eyes once and tapped her wrist. 2 slow beats, then 1, their fallback signal. He had not been poisoned. The biometric podium had been programmed to display a false arrhythmia. When Aldo's packet approached its reader, "Move away," Bianca ordered. "Let the port physician examine him." The man stepping forward was the same imposter who had served the water. Cassandra rose, using her cane. "Ask him for Luca's baseline QT interval." The imposter hesitated. Dr. Chen's real baseline was sealed with the board that afternoon. A legitimate examiner would know it. Port Chair Helen Ward blocked the man's path and ordered authority security to detain him. Behind the curtain, Daniel drove his heel onto Enzo's foot and twisted away. The pistol fired into the ceiling. Cassandra tapped her cane twice, activating Prius restored relay. Agent Parker's team entered through both backstage doors. Enzo seized Bianca as a shield, revealing where his loyalty ended. "Tell them to lower their weapons," he said. Bianca's cold composure broke. "You said Cassandra would be dead before midnight." The stage microphones captured every word. Enzo tightened his arm around her throat. "And you said your father would pay after the ports transferred. The payments are in the Orion ledger." A confession born from panic was useful, but not sufficient. Cassandra needed the independent proof. She addressed Aldo. "The packet in your hand came from the conservation room. It came from my office." Agent Park switched on an ultraviolet evidence lamp. Fluorescent thread patterns glowed across Aldo's fingers and Enzo's technician sleeve. The blank decoy schedule had passed from the supervised evidence room to Enzo and then Aldo. Its chain of custody was documented. Priya projected the authenticated device handshake archive, Bianca's receiver joining Enzo's command relay, the relay locking Moretti house, the same relay transmitting Cassandra's tracker coordinates. Adrian Vale appeared by secure video and authenticated the false route Cassandra gave him along with the Salvi freight manifest. Dr. Chen joined from the recovered van after port police freed her, confirming the altered compound and explaining the genuine signature Bianca had copied from an earlier treatment authorization. Finally, Daniel identified the injector beneath Enzo's sleeve. Agent Park recovered it without breaking the seal. Its batch matched Salvi clinical logistics. The compound matched Dr. Chen's chromatogram. Enzo's fingerprints lay beneath the sterile cap, proving he prepared it rather than merely carrying a planted object. Level 3 formed from independent sources. Device logs proved coordination. The fluorescent packet proved participation in the covert transfer. The sealed injector and manifest connected means to intent. Recorded stage statements established objective and knowing action. Enzo tried his last contingency. He shoved Bianca toward Park and ran for the climate vault, where an emergency purge could destroy the museum server. Cassandra could not chase him on her injured ankle. She did not need to. Earlier, she had mapped the accessible routes and asked port security to lock the vault whenever her cane transmitter sent 3 rapid taps. She struck the floor 3 times. The vault door sealed. Enzo collided with it and was arrested seconds later. Aldo attempted to invoke family privilege. Luca stood from the podium, straightened his jacket, and publicly revoked the proxy using the recovered token. Then he did something no Moretti boss had done. He waived the family's private arbitration claim for crimes connected to Bellwether and submitted the evidence to federal custody. Bianca stared at Cassandra. "You ruined your own family to save a man who threw you away." Cassandra looked at Daniel, now receiving medical care, then at Luca. "No. I stopped protecting powerful people from the consequences of their choices." The board suspended the operator transfer and renewed Bellwether's lease only under independent compliance supervision. Salvi Holdings was removed from consideration. Aldo, Bianca, and Enzo were taken away through the same atrium where Cassandra had been called jealous and unreliable. Before the cameras, Luca approached her but stopped beyond reach. "Cassandra Bell saved everyone in this building," he said, "and I made her danger worse because believing a convenient lie protected my pride." He did not ask her to stand beside him. He stepped aside so she could address the room on her own. The consequences lasted longer than the applause. Over the next 6 months, federal prosecutors charged Enzo with attempted murder, kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy. Bianca and Aldo faced fraud, unlawful transfer, and racketeering counts. Vittorio Salvi resigned from 3 foundations after customs records linked his companies to sanctioned cargo. Adrian Vale entered a cooperation agreement. Daniel completed treatment for gambling addiction and accepted probation for falsifying pharmacy records. A consequence, Cassandra refused to erase for him. Bellwether survived, but not unchanged. Independent monitors controlled customs compliance. Luca removed the family's private security authority from legitimate port operations and created protected reporting channels no single chief could intercept. He sold 2 assets to compensate employees and vendors harmed by the lockdown and investigation. Cassandra did not return as his secretary. With Mara and Dr. Chen, she founded Bell Ortiz Risk Systems, specializing in executive logistics, medical chain security, and insider threat audits. Her first contract came from the port board, not Luca. Her second came from a hospital network. She built a life in which competence was visible, paid, and owned by her. Luca's restitution was public before it became personal. At the next Bellwether board meeting, he corrected the official record. Cassandra had acted independently to prevent an illegal transfer. His dismissal and surrender of her had been unjustified. Every claim that jealousy motivated her was false. He transferred the reward offered for Enzo's capture to the legal defense fund Cassandra, established for coerced employees. Only after those acts did he ask to see her. They met at the Maritime Museum on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Cassandra wore a forest green wrap dress beneath a wool coat. Her ankle had healed, though she still slowed on stairs when tired. Luca wore a black coat over an open-collar shirt. Tattoos visible above the fabric, his expression remained controlled, but regret lived in the set of his eyes. "I am not asking you to forgive the man I was that night," he said. "I am asking whether I can prove I am not staying him." Cassandra studied the river beyond the glass. "You do not get access to me as a reward for doing what justice required, I know. You do not monitor my clients, buy my company, assign guards without consent, or call protection love agreed. And if I tell you a truth you dislike, you investigate it before you punish me for it." Luca nodded. That should have been the first rule. She did not offer instant absolution. They began with coffee in public places, then dinners where neither discussed schedules. Luca learned to ask what Cassandra needed instead of arranging it. Cassandra learned that revealing fear was not the same as surrendering control. Attraction, long buried beneath hierarchy and danger, became possible only after equality made choice real. 1 year after the gala, Bell Ortiz audited Bellwether under a contract negotiated by Cassandra's attorney. Luca sat across from her in the boardroom and answered every question without using their relationship to avoid scrutiny. When her report identified a senior manager's conflict, he removed the manager after independent review. That evening they returned to Moretti House for a small charity dinner. The ballroom had been repaired. No replacement secretary stood beneath the chandeliers. No one announced Cassandra as belonging to Luca. He found her near the west archway, where the first bullet had struck stone. The mark remained, preserved behind glass as part of the estate's security history. "Do you regret leaving it?" she asked. "No, a house should remember where its owner failed." Cassandra looked at the cold-faced man who had once mistaken control for strength, and where his secretary saved him. "Her name is on the record," Luca said. "But she was never only my secretary." He offered his hand without taking hers. The tattoos across his fingers no longer looked like a claim. They were simply part of the man waiting for an answer. Cassandra chose freely. She placed her hand in his, not because he needed her to keep him alive, not because she needed him to see her worth. They walked into the repaired ballroom as two people who had learned that loyalty without truth becomes a cage, protection without consent becomes control, and love can begin only after both doors are opened from the inside.